Yeah.
And there he is. All right. Well, terrific. Hello, Peter. How are you?
Hey, Jimmy. I'm great. Awesome to be back with you and David on a Friday again. Always good to chat with you. Catch up.
Appreciate it. You're right in the middle of a crowdfunding activity. Can you give me a little update on how you're doing with that?
We're doing great. I think we're up to close to almost 70% of completion, and we have about 2 weeks left. So it's moving along quickly. We're really excited. We've been announcing some new things. One of the things we announced recently is that we're adding a dispensary directory to Leafwire. And it's kind of one of those things we kind of figured, why haven't we done this all along? With dispensaries essentially being, the backbone of the whole industry. I mean, everything
Right.
we do at Leafwire is driving, providing services to people who serve the industry. So the ultimate goal of the industry is to drive people into dispensaries and buy products. So why don't we do that directly?
Absolutely. Makes sense. And we all know that there's kind of a giant in the business whose model was identifying maps to where they can find cannabis, if you catch my drift, without giving them a plug, because we want Leafwire to have an opportunity to find dispensaries too.
Right, exactly. And something notable about that company as well is they recently filed to go public under a SPAC, another company, and at a valuation of 1.5 billion.
Yeah, that 1.5 billion evaluation keeps getting thrown around. We're all excited about this new app that's out there called Clubhouse. It's a very cannabis friendly app. Yep. Are you familiar with Clubhouse?
I am, yes. We're actually looking at starting up a Leafwire group on there so that we could have a consistent, maybe once a week type group meetup where we can have different topics every week. So yeah, we're definitely. I actually have an Android phone, not an iPhone, so I have to kind of take my wife's phone away just in order to get in the Clubhouse.
You're not going to be part of the beta then, because we all know Clubhouse is a iOS beta only opportunity for people out there who love their apps and everything.
Right.
Have we been able to discover if David's microphone is working now?
Yeah, and is it working? No.
Is it working? I don't hear him. Can I hear him? Okay, we're working. So here's the deal. David we sent him out shopping today for a new microphone, Peter, and he came back. And of course, when you test the new microphone, works fine, right? But as soon as you go live, there's no fixing live. So we're just waiting to see if we can actually get this thing to work for him and not. But I could continue to talk with you. Peter, the biggest news of the new administration seems to be a refreshing look at the cannabis industry. Now that the Democrats are in charge of both houses of Congress, are you encouraged by this, or are you like some of these cannabis advocates out there? They don't think the federal government is ready to legalize cannabis. What's your feeling about that?
I think there's definitely a lot of uncertainty about that, but I do think there's still a lot of things to be excited about. There's a lot of in-between steps I think that can happen. For example, some of the banking acts, the More Banking Act, that can protect companies' ability to use banks, to allow these dispensaries to get off of this crazy cash-only cycle, which you think would just be better for governments anyway. It's safer, money's in the bank, it can be taxed, it can be tracked. You can keep more black market activities out of the industry. So there's that, and there's a few other medium steps, whether it's descheduling cannabis from a level 1 drug to level 2 or 3.
Or getting rid of it totally off that controlled substance. That's what everybody. Yeah. You have to be able to do that,
Yeah, everyone has different opinions as to like what the best thing to do first is. I have heard pretty consistently people feel complete legalization might still be more a year or two away. But I think, one of the other things to remember is this last November, 4 or 5 states voted to legalize. So we're going to get a bunch of new states right away this year. And there's so many states that are desperate right now for tax revenue. Like I've been reading, New York is one of the ones people keep talking about, but even Texas and Florida, huge states that, could some of these states could help almost double the size of the industry if you add in 3, 4, 5 more of these states. And that's happening because of the pandemic many times faster than it would have otherwise.
No doubt about it. And exactly, because the economy, it's almost like a perfect storm of politics and news, if you will. Two things, by the way, I've never been a big fan of. I was always the sports guy, not the news guy. But the point is, they are also struggling at each state level. One of the things that disturbed me as I'm preparing and putting our news show together, which we run right after this show, We Talk News, is the fact that some of the states are now getting having internal disputes. There's some litigation going on. South Dakota has some people trying to block the initiative that the voters put in place. This is what bothers me about that more than anything else, is the whole point of a ballot question is to enact or change the laws the way they're supposed to be. The next step is to have the legislator come in and do what the people want. Isn't that what a democracy is?
Yeah, it's disheartening, I think, for a lot of the people who live in those states, especially for the advocates and all of the businesses that are springing up, to all of a sudden see the people who are paid to enact the will of the people actually look as if they're standing in the way, or even trying to override, what people ask to do. And so I think you see a combination. You see that, but then you also just see a lot of political infighting. Of every group wants more money for social equity, or more money for schools, or something to be set up one way or the other way. And New Jersey is struggling with this right now. And that also is holding up a lot of states that, again, are desperate for these tax dollars. It seems completely against what's in their best interest to make these things stall for months, 6 months, years. I mean, some states take years. Maine, I think, took there were 3 years before.
4 years, if you could read
Wow.
those ugly figures of mine, 4 years to get it going. Yeah.
Right. That's crazy. I mean, imagine all the tax revenue they lost, all the businesses that probably went out of business in that 4-year period because they thought they were going to be able to exist in an industry that never started.
Right. And it's interesting, but the main cannabis group that's up there, not just the business, but the caretakers, they've had medicinal program for years, and caretakers have been the ones who've been distributing and legally selling cannabis to that state. And now, of course, they're trying to figure out what is the best way. And needless to say, the caretakers are taking on the MSOs that are up there. It's a tad ugly, as they say in the world. Now, let me just see, we're going to do another test, because I actually saw out of the corner of my eye, a microphone may have made an appearance in front of David Rabinovitz. David, are you there?
Am I here, Jimmy?
Yes, you sound great, but you're very faint. Is there any way that we might be able to boost David's new audio? Because it sounds very clear. Any luck? You have to actually talk
Hold
to see
on.
if we can.
How's this, Jimmy? How's this?
Much better.
You like this?
That's much better. Thank you very much. I'd even take more, but that's okay. I'll be happy with that as long as Dan doesn't interfere and say to me, Jimmy, shut up, let David talk. Okay, I get it. David, good to see you. Peter's with us. Why don't you ask Peter a question? Go ahead.
Well,
Hey, David.
Hey, good to see you, Peter. So
You too.
I caught most of this. I think, the raise sounds like it's going really well, which I would expect. Leafwire is a great property. I think, and some of the things you've done with flower hire, I think has been very powerful. And the fact you're going to start to get into listing dispensaries, that's probably a very wise move. That SPAC that you were mentioning, SSPK, it's doubled in value.
Right.
And they haven't even closed the deal, right?
Right.
That thing just keeps going up, up, up.
Yeah. And that means that 1.5 billion valuation we all thought was kind of crazy. Suddenly, that's a market cap of $3 billion for the company we were talking about earlier, who the other directory company.
Right. The one that's got less than, in its total history of like 4 or 5 years, less than $500 million in revenue.
Right.
It is a huge valuation, but that means people are expecting hockey stick type growth.
Right. It's crazy. And that's one of the things we're excited about. And at Leafwire, one of the things we're doing to try and make our offering unique is so we're going to start off in Colorado. There's about 1,000 dispensaries here. We're going to list every single one. And we think that's important to be a real directory. You have to list everything because otherwise you're going to miss out. It's not just the ones that pay. And the dispensaries are going to be offering Leafwire only discounts on certain days. So let's call it Leafwire Wednesday.
Yep.
If you go in on Wednesday to the dispensaries who agree, you get 10% off your whole purchase. And we're telling these dispensaries that we're going to list them, but if they want to be featured at the top, they have to offer a discount. So it gives them an incentive to offer a discount. And that way, Leafwire members have a reason to come back, use the directory, and check frequently, because it actually turns into real cash for them. If you spend an average of, I think it's, 120, 150 bucks people spend, you're talking about saving, $12, $15, $20 every time you go shop.
Yeah, that's a great deal. That's a smart move on your part.
Yeah, we think it makes a lot of sense. And it also, one thing it does for Leafwire in terms of us attracting investors, we're now not just a social business network. We're actually a place that's driving sales into stores. Yep. So we, one, can attract new investors and people who are looking at us for a potential exit to see how are we going to turn Leafwire into a lucrative return for investors. Suddenly we're attractive to a whole other group of people. We're a much larger group of people who view us now as a driver of sales, not just a social networking platform.
How many users do you have on the platform at this point?
We're hovering between, I think we're getting close up to 38,000 members who've created profiles. And that represents, it's about 16,000 companies that have profiles on there as well. And it's been, grown consistently all through the pandemic.
Yep. Well, I think the last time we spoke with you, you were around, I thought it was just under 30,000. So that's pretty good growth.
Yeah, it's possible. It's definitely been, we've seen good, as you can imagine, our traffic and everything has been going up and remaining very steady during the pandemic. And we've been seeing a lot of return usage, people coming back a lot more, session times going up, things like that. So it's the online tools are more and more important now than ever.
How many?
Now, I got to interrupt David real quick, because another story that has the billion word attached to it was the sale of Drizzly, which was a online delivery service for alcohol. Their sister company, Lantern, I believe, is now going to be in Colorado, in Denver, and providing delivery software to various dispensaries. Are you familiar with Lantern at all, Peter?
I am. I didn't know they were coming out to Denver. I don't believe we've officially passed anything that allows that yet.
Well, no. So this is the deal, because they're expediting delivery. They're already setting up, and in fact, that story is part of our We Talk News that follows this. It is, and it was covered in the Denver. I got the story out of one of the local Denver papers.
I'll have to look it up.
And again, the thing about Drizzly and Lantern, their model basically is they coordinate the delivery. So You're right, Peter, that the state of Colorado may not have actually licensed any actual delivery drivers that would take it from the dispensary to the home, but they've agreed to allow the software company Lantern to set up shop there. So that it's an interesting way to look at it, because here in Massachusetts, and David's been right in the middle of the whole social equity delivery license thing, there was a lot of, let's call it brouhaha. David, is that a good way to describe it? What's going on?
That's probably a very good way to describe it, Jimmy. We've had a lot of drama. We had the largest cannabis association, the Commonwealth Dispensary Association, made up of the original medical, total vertically integrated operators, sued the Cannabis Control Commission to crush the home delivery model, because the home delivery's got a 3-year set aside for social equity applicants. It was how they were really going to get social equity applicants to get real traction in the business. The backlash, the grassroots backlash, was so severe. Within 4 days, they withdrew their suit. They lost 25% of their members, probably $120,000 worth of annual revenue. Then they withdrew the suit. We hear a lot of turbulence going on over there. And then one of the lead players, Rev Clinics, who had been suing the city of Cambridge, a couple days after that withdrew their long-standing suit against the social equity period for the city of Cambridge. So we've had a lot of Lot going on. We've got a lot going on. We just had a case argued in the our state Supreme Court the other day, having to do with this host community agreement thing, which is basically the local license. The communities tend to take marijuana operators and clean their pockets out. The Supreme Court, state Supreme Court justices were asking a lot of questions about that as well. So we're in a very controversial state these days. Lots going on.
Wow. Sounds like
Now-
a brouhaha is a pretty polite way to describe it.
Yeah.
Anyway, Peter, I want to make sure I clarify. Lantern did not get sold. It was Drizzly that got sold to Uber Technologies,
Right.
and Lantern is now on its own.
Right.
But I'm guessing that the people that were involved with Drizzly in the beginning,
Yes.
I'm guessing they're pretty happy. And I'm sure in time, Lantern will be very attractive to other investors out there, because it basically makes the delivery service easier. So we'll see.
Yeah, no, we'll definitely be reaching out to them, because part of what we're going to do on Leafwire is, V1 is just setting up the directory, but then V2 is actually enabling people to make orders and pay ahead actually on our platform. So there's a few companies out there that enable that now, not really universally. I think that's one of the problems with everything federally illegal still. It's really hard for a lot of these companies to be nationwide.
Right. Which really and truly, we don't know if it's going to be 100 days, 6 months. I mean, I could predict the Super Bowl, or I could predict that there's going to be legalization or decriminalization in the United States of cannabis. And I'm going to stay away from both, because I think there will be a winner of the Super Bowl, and I think we'll have cannabis reform in 2021. And when it comes time, Peter, I'll be happy to make the intro to Meredith Mahoney, who is the CEO of Lantern.
Oh, that'd be great. I would appreciate that.
And of course, you could go and watch the interview that I did with her on In the Weeds back on our channels and on our social media. So you could even get a chance to get to know her. She's very, very nice, and I love their model anyway. So, Peter, it's getting closer and closer to that magic time in the cannabis universe of 420. And I certainly apologize for the technical snafu off the top, but I know exactly who I'm going to blame for that, and it's not Dan French.
I got another prize.
We'll talk about showing up for the show 30 seconds before you go live, or 5 minutes before you go live. But that's another lesson that's learned, and that's what this is all about. Peter Vogel from Leafwire, you've become a friend and a regular, and I really appreciate that. We love your service and your platform as well. And by all means, again, how do people find out about your crowdfunding?
Yes, thanks for giving me a chance to provide that, Jimmy. So you can go to Seed Invest, and that's seed like the plant, not related to cannabis. They actually have all sorts of different companies, artificial intelligence, robotics, etc. But it's seedinvest.com, and you can browse. There's about 12 companies fundraising. We're one of them. And like I said, we're close to about 70% done. So if you're interested, save your spot. It's your chance right now to own a piece of Leafwire. This is, we haven't done this kind of public raise before, and I don't know if we will again. So if you're interested, please check us out at Seed Invest. And there's also a discussion board there, so you can always post questions that I'll answer.
There you go. Seed Invest is where you go, and that's SEEDINVEST.com. I win the spelling bee. All right, Peter Vogel, it's 4:20. Thank you so much. It's time for us to take our 4:20 break.